This is Dr. Brad Montagne, veteran functional medicine doc with Your Health Reclaimed, where we expose the roots of Lyme and chronic illness. It's the root issues that are real key to actually being able to heal. And in today's discussion, we're continuing the talk with Isabella Young. This is a real key talk in that she was wrapped up in a real abusive cult that really took her life in a really bad direction. She had to make a bunch of decisions to get outside of that and had to rethink a lot of her belief systems. A lot of people don't realize the fact that they are in that same situation with their doctors. It's more of a cultic type of following. They can't possibly deliver what people really desire, but they believe that's where they should go, and they end up being very dysfunctional relationships and behaviors. So this is real key for everybody within the chronic illness sector, and what happens inside of these relationships, how you break free from them and actually find healing in life. And she really finds a lot in natural things that we discussed toward the end. So this is real critical. And so let's jump into this.
No way. Australia is probably one of the least free countries, along there with Canada and any of the countries that seem to be like the Western countries. They're really not free. Australia only just realized that there was a difference between hemp and marijuana. Not that long ago, if you went to buy hemp oil or hemp seeds from the shop, they would have a label on it that said for external use only. They still didn't realize it. So slow there, so controlling of people. They had the hardest lockdowns there. The day my heart broke, I know this is way off topic, not sort of health thing, but the Australian, I don't know who they were. They weren't Australians. I don't think they were black, sort of military looking, sort of like RoboCops with rubber bullet guns, and they opened fire on Australian citizens who were peacefully gathered at the Shrine of Remembrance in Melbourne, which is the shrine that honours those people who gave their lives for freedom for the country. Like the irony of that.
Yeah.
And they were open fire on them.
Well, it's interesting what gets revealed in life. But you said something a moment ago that I think is real relevant to the discussion, is that all these systems of propaganda you threw in Western medicine, and most of the approaches to healthcare, most of the doctors that we see in our country at least, and I rubbed some shoulders with some in Australia, it appeared to be the same thing. They all have, there's few that deal genuinely with people. Most of them have these cookbook, cultic ideas that require a certain type of belief system to accept it, and they keep going back even though they're not getting any better. So, in you coming out of what you came out of, and you look at all the inner healing that you need to do, what do you have to do with your belief system in the aspects of care to begin to start to change that?
Well, for me, the primary thing that helped me heal and still helps me heal is my connection to nature and the natural world. Like that's what helped calm my nervous system after all those years in the cult and the murder of my son. And so I was able to just calm down. And so I actually would go and lie on the grass for, 20, 30 minutes, fall asleep on the grass or whatever, or on the sand, just to get grounded, get connected to earth energy, because it's life force energy. Any of the energy that's coming from the planets, the stars, the trees, the rocks, the earth is all life optimizing information and energy. So I had to make sure I stayed grounded. I haven't really worn shoes for about 8 years now, except of course if the ground's not suitable for walking on, but I stay directly connected to nature. So I'm getting charged. I'm also rebalancing physiologically, electromagnetically. It even rebalances like left and right hemispheres of the brain. So I practice that. And the other thing I do try to spend as much time outdoors as possible. So I'm getting natural light rather than computer light. Most people have now replaced natural light with artificial light, and that's incredibly disempowering and sickening for us. We need natural light. It's what keeps us alive and keeps us healthy. So I spend time outdoors doing gardening. I spend a lot of time in the ocean. Getting into the ocean is one of the most powerful medicines that are available to us, and it's free, or any body of fresh water actually is going to be beneficial. And then the other thing that I do that's been most transforming is I sun gaze. So every morning when the sun comes up and I can see it, I get that light from the sun, which is the most powerful light and the highest information that we can receive into our bodies. And so I just do that for, well, now it's up to 30 seconds, but it's a pretty powerful practice. So started off at only a few seconds, and then I do it again at sunset. And so I get that life optimizing information, and I don't understand exactly how it works, but I know that it helps remove cognitive dissonance. So, I can see more clearly. I can take in more information. Help me write. I just finished an 825-page book with like 1,800 footnotes. So it enabled my consciousness to expand, and it activates what some people have erroneously called junk DNA. So it activates DNA and awakens ancient memories. I've had that experience too. So I think my message for today, if nothing else, it would be to spend as much time in nature as possible, away from electronic devices, doing human things and being relaxed and enjoying time outdoors, because what being human is being replaced with, living as a sort of a more natural human being is now being replaced by this techno-human, I'm calling, where we got now 2 generations of humans who relate to life more through screens than through the natural world. So they're not feeling the wind on their face, they're not looking at stars, they're not watching clouds, they're not looking at birds, they're not getting the signs and synchronicities from the natural world that are guiding us. And that's a concern for me. So it would be to spend as much time as possible outdoors and take children, go camping, have a picnic, go watch a meteor shower, watch the full moon rise, just reconnect with nature, because without a connection to nature, it's not possible to be healthy, not physically healthy or mentally healthy, spiritually healthy. It's just not possible.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're talking about all the light issues. 2 things about that are really amazing. One, you're closer to the equator than a lot of people, and so you get more sun exposure all year round than a lot of places do. One of the things of sun exposure to the skin is the production of vitamin D.
Vitamin D, right?
Which does a lot of the things that what you're talking about. Vitamin D is a huge issue for immune health, for brain health, for bone health, for every aspect of health. It's one of the greatest things of the 2000s has been vitamin D and its impact on physiology. Another thing about light that I think is really interesting, third time I've talked about this, but Albert Einstein, he came up with a theory of relativity, E equals mc squared. And what that means is something that really isn't talked about much. But E is energy, M is mass, and C is the speed of light. It means that all 3 of those are interconnected. And when you look at just simple chemistry and the physics of atoms, of the elements that are out there that combine into molecules and make everything, they're not what we were told in school. They're not like these little solar systems, but they're actually electromagnetic pumps. The building block of all the parts of an atom is something called a quark. It's an electromagnetic spin of light. And as the orbitals circle around the nucleus, those orbitals are usually negative charges called an electron, but they can be positive charges in isotopes, and then they're positrons, and the nucleus then is negative. And that's something that's just kind of mind-boggling for a lot of people, but that's chemistry and physics that does that. But as these orbitals travel around, what it does, it makes these electromagnetic pulses pump back and forth. When you go out and you expose yourself in what you're talking about, the sun, you're getting a re-energizing of the weakened electromagnetic pumps within your body. I mean, lasers are a really intense form of something like that, and it's called photon energy. A photon has a part that's energy and a part that is actually a particle, and that's the mass side of that equation. And it's huge that what you're talking about isn't this esoteric religious thing going on. It's actual basic physiology
Right.
at a molecular level is what goes on to help restore that. And when you connect with nature like what you are talking about, you're getting away from all the manufactured products that don't look like they come from plants and trees and the things of nature. They're not, when you start getting more tied with nature, like what you're talking about, you start eating foods that look like it's something that's out in the wild rather than something's processed that you can't recognize what it is. And that's what builds health.
Yeah. Yeah, because we actually produce those biophotons. We make light. Most people don't know that, but we actually do produce light. That the fact that we are light beings and we do emit light means that we can increase that amount of light that we radiate by embodying light, by eating vegetables that have tropical fruits, for instance, they have lots of biophotons, or drinking water that's been out in the sun. There are a lot of ways that we can, then there's like meditation or prayer, these just going and sitting out in nature, these practices can increase the amount of light that we produce ourselves, and that makes us more resilient. Less like increases immunity and just makes us like more powerful, really. And then that light adds to the collective light frequencies, and that as we emit more light, and there's more light now coming from the sun. I mean, even today, I think the solar activity is off the charts. Like literally, there are these solar flares going off, and there's the magnetosphere is decreasing, so there's more light coming in. Light is key to our health, our well-being, our evolution as individuals and as a collective. This whole making people fearful of the sun, that's a purposeful like fear that's being introduced into people's minds, all about connecting sunlight with skin cancer. Well, there's arguments that doesn't necessarily correlate, doesn't necessarily work like that. Maybe it's the sunscreens, or maybe it's what's actually being like
Oh,
processed.
yeah. Well, when you look at the studies of sunscreen, it
Right.
increases the presence of skin cancer
Right.
sevenfold.
Carcinogenic sunscreens or carcinogenic foods that people have been eating, but instead of the truth being told that that's what's causing it, it's blamed on the sun. So people are like fearful of the sun now, but the sun's what gives us life. So now we've got people who are fearful of the sun, addicted to screens, indoors, eating garbage, poison, drinking poison, and it's actually extraordinary that people can continue to live without
Yeah.
nutrition from the nature or food or water. It's extraordinary.
It's interesting as you're talking about we create light, we emit light. When a person is properly trained, they can just look at the skin of a person and they can tell a lot about their health. The amount of reflection of light that comes off of the skin, how thick it is, how much veins show, different things along that nature are huge reflections of health.
Health, right? Like people say,
That
"Oh, you're glowing." That's that's
right.
usually a compliment given to someone who's looking healthy. Oh, she's glowing.
And
So yeah,
what's going on inside of us when that happens is those electromagnetic pumps that make every substance in our cells and of our body. When those electromagnetic pumps are healthy, the movement of the electromagnetics going back and forth within all of the atoms inside of all the molecules inside of all the cells are going to generate a healthier light, and that is going to give a whole difference in countenance. Some people can see that. There's a type of photography called Kirlian photography.
right.
Have you
Yeah.
heard that?
Mm-hmm.
Where you can actually see the electromagnetic radiance of different things that are out there. There are things that you can do to wilt that, like a microwave wilts that tremendously. And there's things
Right.
where you can increase that
Yeah.
which is by taking the things of nature, what you're talking about, things that are back to the root
Yeah.
foundations of
So,
how they should grow, increases that energy
yeah.
and increases health in a huge way.
Mm-hmm. Because the body, when anything synthetic or unnatural is introduced into the body, it reacts with inflammation. It's like, whoa, and that inflammation is then the underlying cause for a whole lot of chronic illnesses. So the body's in a much weakened state if we're not connected to nature, spending time in nature, eating natural foods, drinking pure water. We're incredibly weakened and compromised and just vulnerable to disease and mental and physical illnesses.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Inflammation isn't the issue. It's what causes the inflammation is what the real root issue is. And those are things that most doctors in any type of profession just don't address. We
No,
do
they
that.
don't. I reckon the root cause of inflammation is being disconnected from Earth. If everyone went outside for 15 minutes a day and put bare feet on grass or walked on sand or laid on the earth, hugged a tree, hold a crystal, pat a grounded pet, if people were grounded and connected to the earth, these problems of inflammation wouldn't be as prevalent. I reckon if you looked at the chronic diseases in countries where people don't wear shoes, or they're living indigenously or whatever, those diseases, I bet you, if they're not eating a Western diet, would be much lower, just because they're connected to the earth and spending time in nature and touching the earth, eating natural foods, and
Yeah, you look
inflammation.
at a couple of things are really interesting in the cultures that are very healthy and have the longest lifespans. They eat whole food diets that are full of fiber, and it looks like what they serve in for their meals. It looks like something you could go pick off of a tree or a berry or whatever it is that's out there. There is so much to that that we've lost in Western culture.
Yeah, we're completely disconnected from our food chain because there's so much like magic in plant medicine. For instance, there's a book, a series of books called The Ringing Cedars, and it's mainly about a woman who lives in the taiga of Russia. She's like let's just call her she's an old woman who's been living in the forest by herself, so she understands a lot of plant medicines and just the ways of the forest. And what she talks about is that you can grow medicine that's specific to your body, and she provides a protocol where you can hold the seeds in your mouth, and then at a certain time of the moon cycles or whatever, plant the seeds and then water them with intention that plant's going to grow medicine for you, and it will. I completely believe that. What I do is I grow sprouts. I keep sprouts going, whether it's lentil sprouts, mung beans, broccoli sprouts. They've got
Wow.
the highest amount of sulforaphane, and I grow them continuously because sprouts have the highest amount of life force in them, right? Because it's germinating. So they
When you look at the nutrient density of sprouts, I'm not
right.
sure if you're aware of this, it's like 400
Yeah.
times what a mature plant is.
So you can just
Literally,
grow.
it's
Anyone can do that.
insane. It's
Anyone can grow sprouts. You
yeah,
need
it's
a jar.
absolutely insane how nutrient dense they are.
And then I put them on salads or just eat a handful of them every day. And then I get that life force energy from sprouts. And the other
Yeah,
one that I do, so I also communicate. I have that intention that's what I'm doing. I'm growing medicine for myself. I also make my own kombucha. So I've been doing that for years now.
it's one
And
of the healthiest drinks in the world.
yeah,
It's interesting you bring up plant medicine. We're going to have to end in a couple of minutes here. I got another podcast to get on. Enoch in the Bible, he was the first one the Lord took up out of the earth who didn't die. Lord took him out and he had set him down in a heavenly place, and he wrote an insane amount of books. It's like 360 books. At least, I think 4 of those were about plant medicine, the herbs it would take to undo the disease that was going to be unleashed on humankind because of the fall. Those were handed down from generations to Noah. Noah took those on the ark. They were given to Seth. And you have all of your Oriental races come out of Seth. People think Chinese medicine was their origin. No, it came from Enoch, straight from God, handed down through Seth, and very few cultures kept that. We don't know where that book went. Those books went after Seth, but we know they were transferred at least that far, and
Oh,
where
that's
they went
interesting.
from there. So the issue of plant medicine is absolutely 100% rooted in biblical truth. People don't realize that. It's not a cultic thing from some Eastern religion. God gave them to Enoch. And Enoch passed it down to the generations. Noah took them with him in the ark, and Seth got those when they came out.
Hmm.
So that's where plant medicine comes from.
From God. I love that.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
pretty
Yeah.
powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So, all right. So, last word, and then we got to bail because I've got to get on something else. So, your big issue is to get yourself connected back with nature.
Mm.
Start to eat natural things, drink natural things. What you're
Listen
talking
to,
about is nutrient density.
yeah, basically just as return to be listening to natural sounds too. That's something that even if you live in the city, you can. And when I was in the city, I played the sounds of birds and whale songs and ocean waves and stuff like that because that's what calms the nervous system. That's what our body like craves to hear, not all the the city noise. And even so there's some forms of music that are better to listen to than the others, but to think about, like you're saying, the reconnecting to nature, we can do that by actually taking our bodies out into nature, by eating natural foods, drinking pure spring water, listening to natural sounds, and then doing things that humans do, being creative, making art, cooking food, playing board games, going outside and playing games that require people to actually like humanly interact, that don't involve screens or whatever. So basically my message is spend as much time in the natural world as possible, away from electronic devices, and be doing as human things as possible and enjoying that. Dancing, singing, painting, whatever it is that you like to do, make sure that you are following your passions as much as you can.
That's perfect. With that, we're going to have to go because I've got to be on another one. So thanks for coming. This has been a great talk, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
Thank you, Dr. Brad, and thank you for the work that you're doing to help people improve their health and live more enjoyable lives. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be a guest on your platform, and other people to be able to share our wisdom so that we can help reduce the suffering. And so thank you for all that you're doing. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Have a great day. Bye.
Yeah, you too.
Well, this concludes this conversation with Isabella, and this has been just a real profound discussion here. As I said earlier, this is so typical of people's relationships with their caregivers that people don't really realize. And it takes a lot of mental gymnastics to realize that they're dysfunctional, that they can't possibly give the benefits that people are looking for, and the whole process of unwinding the belief system that keeps you entrapped in these dysfunctional relationships, how that needs to be unwound before you can really find real healing. So this has been a great listen, been a great talk, and we just covered a lot of subjects that are real critical for everybody in the chronic illness sector to understand, so they can finally find some healing. So if you like this, put a review on, share this with your friends. We need to get this kind of information out there because these are the things that really keep people from healing. So if you need some help with your healing, get a hold of us. Let's do a consult and figure out what your root causes are and how to get you going forward with healing. Until next time, we'll say bye for now. Thanks for listening. Bye.